Hey everybody, Courtney here, Smitty's Fly Box. I'm just going to be tying our intermediate fly for our June tying boxes. This is just our Hi Vis Ant. It's a good little ant pattern to use during the summertime. I like the design of this with that Hi Vis ant body. First, I'm just going to go ahead and start my thread just about an eye length or so behind the hook eye. I'm just going to lay down a base layer of thread along the hook shank. And with these Orienson hooks, obviously there's no barb on here, so I don't have that as a stopping point. But I'm just going to come back here just kind of towards the bend of the hook, maybe slightly into the bend is all. And we're going to start with our little foam cylinders. So these are just Wapsi Hi Vis Ant foam cylinders. These have been around for years. They're great little ant bodies, make little good dry fly patterns. Just something different to see instead of the blocky foam that we usually get with cutting out our own foam pieces. This little round cylinder gives a nice natural profile. So when I line this up, I like to line it up so that white high vis area is lined up with the front of the hook eye. And then I'm just going to take my bobbin and bring it up and over and just start gathering some of this foam. I'm just going to compress a little bit of this foam down with my thread. And what that's going to do is just allow me to have a clean working space here to tie in my wing, my legs, and my hackle. So I'll just wrap this over, just kind of compress some of that foam, and we'll end up with a little gap in our foam now. It's about where a traditional barb on your hook would be to your hook point. It's kind of the measurement that I'm going for. Okay, and then I've just taken a little strand of this poly yarn. This is just the brown wing that we're using for this. I just take one of those little cords out of that rope section. I take my dubbing brush and I just brush that out so I get a nice fluffy effect to that wing. I like the crinkle in this material here. It just kind of gives off a really good profile. Looks cool too. So I'm just gonna place that wing here. I'll trim it here in a minute, but just lay it out so that wings extended out the back, and then we'll bring our thread again up and over and cinch that down with a few good tight wraps. Cut out my excess and then bring my thread back to our tie-in point. I'm just going to trim that wing right now. So I just like to leave that extended off the ant body just slightly. And then next we're going to be tying in our dry fly hackle. So this is just brown dry fly hackle from Whiting. And I've stripped off a few of the first couple barbs on that stem. Makes it a nice clean tie-in point. I'll wrap my thread around that stem, just anchoring it to the side of the hook facing me. And then from here we're going to tie in our legs. So I'm going to position my thread here kind of halfway in that gap that I've tied. And I'm just going to take these little reptile legs here, this brown and gold color, and I'll wrap those right here to the far, or the near side of the hook, near side to me, far side to you on the camera. And then with the near side here facing you at the camera, I'm just going to grab my legs and position them up in between the thread and that foam body, and just the weight of the bobbin will help secure that in there right there. And then I'll do a couple of tight anchoring wraps there. And I'll advance my thread here just forward. And then we're ready to bring our hackle through. So my thread, notice I didn't come up and under, I'm just still hanging here just off the foam. I'm gonna start wrapping my thread forward. This is the tricky part with this fly, is just maneuvering this hackle between all these legs. So I'm gonna do 2 wraps behind the legs. And then on that second wrap, as I come underneath the body, I'm gonna come right up through the middle and do 2 wraps, and then I'll go right in front with 1 wrap. And then once I get to here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that hackle towards me, and with my hackle in my right hand, my threads in my left, I'm going to transfer this. So I'm going to pull that thread up and over the top of the hackle, and then I'm going to switch the hackle to my left hand and my bobbin to my right. Then I can bring my thread up and underneath the foam but around the hook, and that'll give it a nice tight secure wrap right against the side of the hook shank, and it limits the amount of hackle that we trap back here that we just wrap. So rather than just wrapping over the top, we get at a cleaner area here. Now with this, I am just going to take a few tight wraps forward just to secure a little bit more of that hackle stem. And then I can trim out that excess there. And I'll just trim out these little whiskers that were from me pulling that hackle forward. Okay, so that's all there is to that, the back half of the fly. And then I'm just gonna go back and just wrap forward now, just try to make an even body here with thread. You could add dubbing here too if you wanted to add a little bit of a buggy dubbing to that. And I'm gonna wrap right to here. So I'm gonna try to keep that same segmentation size. So from the back here to the front, I'm gonna have a little bit of a segment in the foam. I'm gonna fold that over and tie that down again. And then we're basically gonna repeat that step of tying in our hackle and our legs. So I'll fold that foam over. I'm gonna bring my thread up and over and pull down tight as I come around. Now we have a nice little segment there, a little extra body segment, and we'll compress the rest of this foam down towards the eye. So I'll just grab that with my thread and just wrapping forward, and then I'm ready to repeat those steps again. So I'm gonna again take my brown hackle, stripped off a few of those barbs there to make that stem bare. Just gotta get those back legs out of your way, and then I'm ready to tie that in. Same thing, I'm gonna tie that right to the side of the hook. And then I'm gonna take my rubber legs and tie that into the side of the hook facing me. So now on the near side, I'm just gonna take my rubber legs, grab that, position it between the thread and the hook, and we are got our legs cinched down there. I'm just gonna reposition these a little bit. And then I'm gonna bring my thread forward to in between the foam and the hook eye. Then we're just gonna repeat the hackle process here. So I'm just gonna bring my thread through, or my hackle through, behind the legs. And between the legs. And then I'm ready to go ahead and transfer that thread around my hackle, and then right up underneath that foam head and against the hook eye, I can position that thread right back in there nice and tight and wrap that down. Trim out my excess. Just gonna pull everything back. I'm gonna whip finish this right underneath that foam head. Don't get your leg in there. And there we have it. There is our Hi Vis Ant. Like I said, it's a great little summer pattern. I love fishing this on those really kind of tumbly creeks, tumbly riffles. And let's trim these legs up to size. I don't want them super long, but I want them long enough that they'll give a little movement in the water. I think ants are a pretty underrated pattern, especially in the summertime when the fish have seen a lot of bigger dry flies like your Chernobyls and your grasshoppers, but this fly stands out really good, has a good natural profile to it, and it's a little smaller than your traditional foam fly. So let us know how you do with it and how you like tying that, and